Make sure you subscribe to our channel by clicking on the red subscribe button. And to never miss another lecture from Miracle, hit the bell icon to get regular updates on English literature.
Hello and welcome to Miracle English Language and Literature Institute. I'm Professor Abha Sharma, and in this video I have compiled some important facts from English literature, that is from the history of English literature, which are very useful for your forthcoming UGC NET JRF exam. So let's begin with all the facts. I'm not going to explain them, but read what I have collected for you. So read them again and again to learn all the facts so that you will be able to do your exam better by eliminating the wrong ones first. So the first one is Sir Philip Sidney's Arcadia. Arcadia means, the full name was the Countess of Pembroke's Arcadia. It is a long prose work by Sir Philip Sidney, and it was written towards the end of 16th century. So this is the first English example of prose pastoral romance, which was imitated by various English authors for about 200 years. The story related in Arcadia in the midst of pastoral surrounding where everything is possible. It's long enough to cover 20 modern novels, but its main attraction lies in its style, which is highly poetical and exhaustive. One word is used again and again in different senses, that means as pun, until its all meanings are exhausted. It is also full of pathetic fallacy, which means establishing the connection between the appearance of nature with the mood of the artist. That means it's a very lengthy work. Next, all Daniel Defoe's fictions, like Robinson Crusoe or Moll Flanders, they are written in the biographical form. They follow no system and are narrated in the haphazard manner, which give them a semblance of reality and truth. Sir Leslie Stephen called Defoe's fictions as fictitious biographies or history minus the facts. Next, Richard Steele, the one who is often known with Joseph Edison. Joseph Edison and Richard Steele, they were prose writers of the new classical era. So Richard Steele was the first exponent of the sentimental comedy in the 18th century. In his plays such as The Funeral, The Lying Lover, The Tender Husband, The Conscious Lovers, Steele praised the domestic virtues enthusiastically. Next, fourth, we know that beneath the blithe surface there is something of the domestic horror, of the beautiful heroism and devotedness of the old Greek tragedy. And this is for Charles Lamb. Walter Pater wrote for this Charles Lamb. Of course, Charles Lamb went through a lot of domestic horrors. The self-revealing essays, who wrote always in the gentle, humorous way about the sentiments and truffles of every day. Next, Quincey was a highly intellectual writer and his interests were very wide. Of his autobiographical sketches, the best known is his Confessions of an English Opium Eater, in which he has given us, in a most interesting manner, glimpses of his own life under the influence of opium. On the Knocking at the Gate in Macbeth is the most brilliant, where he gives the distinction between the literature of knowledge and of power. All such questions have been asked in the past in this exam. That's why I've collected all these, so that you can know more about them. Next, Alfred Lord Tennyson. That is, Tennyson's poetry is an exposition of the cautious spirit of Victorian liberalism. He was essentially the poet of law and order as well as of progress. He was a great admirer of English traditions, and though he believed in divine evolution of things, the old order changeth, yielding place to new, and God fulfills himself in many ways, lest one good custom should corrupt the world. Next, the seven lamps of architecture and the stones of Venice. In this, John Ruskin, he tried to prove that the best type of architecture can be produced only in those ages which are morally superior. Being one of the greatest masters of English, he became interested in art and wrote modern painters in 5 volumes. That means it was very, very lengthy, in order to indicate the position of Turner, another painter, as a great artist. Being a man of deeply religious and pious nature, he could not separate beauty from religion, and he endeavored to prove that all great art is praise. Next, Matthew Arnold. He wrote incessantly. He wrote so much. He was a poet, he was a critic. So he wrote incessantly in order to raise the intellectual and cultural level of his countrymen. All his prose work are directed to this end. That means he wanted to prove this only. On translating Homer, the study of Celtic literature, essays in criticism and culture and anarchy, which is very, very famous and important, in which he declared that culture is the minister of the sweetness and light essential to the perfect character. Being a poet himself, he looked upon poetry as a criticism of life and laid great emphasis on the part it played in the formation of character and the guidance of conduct. Next, all the novels of George Eliot. Yes, the same whose pseudonym was George Eliot and her actual name was Mary Ann Evans. So all her novels are example of psychological realism. She represents in them, like that of Browning, the Browning in his poetry, the inner struggle of a soul, that is soul dissection, and reveals the motives, impulses, and hereditary influences which govern human action. But unlike Browning, who generally stops short when he tells a story and either lets the reader draw his own conclusion or gives his in a few striking lines, George Eliot is not content until she has minutely explained the motives of her characters and the moral lessons to be learned from them. So she was only satisfied when she completed working on all such subject of soul dissection minutely. 10th. In The Master of Ballantrae, R.L. Stevenson described the story of a soul condemned to evil. At his death, he was working on unfinished novel Weir of Hermiston, which is considered by some critics as the most finished product of his whole work. In it, he dramatized the conflict between father and son, the Lord Justice Clerk, the hanging judge, and his son Archie, who has the courage to face him. So, these were all the facts-based information for you. I know you've been reading history very hard, you're working on all the topics, but sometimes if you read randomly different things, they remain in your mind quite well. That's why I've started this series. Let me see whether I can make more videos of the same kind for you, which will be really useful for your exams, for your knowledge of literature. Please like and share the video, comment and subscribe the channel. Thank you.